Well, hello YouTube. Here we are with a bit of a video. Well, you remember our old rigid msuv stand? The one we did an unboxing video on a little bit ago, a little bit of a setup video. Well, of course, there was a reason why I did not show us mounting the miter saw to the stand itself. Well, of course, they say it's a universal stand, should fit most or all of the miter saws out there. They really bill it as a universal design, which of course probably for 99.9% of the saws out there it will fit. You know, they really can't anticipate the newer model saws that come out and changes in the saws, and even other, you know, manufacturer saws will be different as well. So, you know, when they build these things, they cannot anticipate the future. Well, of course, whatever it would have been a while ago, I bought a Canadian Tire Maximum saw. Pretty much it's one of the dual bevel siding compound 12-inch blade saws. Kind of a fancy type of saw. That was the whole point of buying this here stand, was to mount that saw on. However, of course, due to the size of the saw, it is actually too big to mount on the stand. Pretty much what I'll do is I'll grab the saw, put it on here, and I'll show you. So of course, as you see there, this is the saw kind of sitting there on, well, the stand itself. It's quite a large saw, quite a heavy saw. So, you know, that's why I bought this stand, was to, well, make it easier to move the saw around, well, the work shop here. And of course, you know, just for, you know, pure portability when I do take it outside and stuff like that. So of course, as you see here, you know, it's pretty much on the orange brackets, just like what they say to put it on. Most saws right here, you drop your bolts in and you're good to go. However, of course, if you guys can see down this hole here, kind of, sort of, maybe, we're lined up at the back for a bolt to go through. But right here on the front, as you see there, well, there is the orange tin of the bracket itself. Of course, that black dot you see is a dot that I made with the marker just to show where she falls. And of course, the other side here is, well, the same thing. Now I've got several options I could do. I could probably return this stand, complaining that it's not a true universal fit design, and, you know, go buy another stand, but chances are it's going to be the same thing. Or if I do buy another stand, it's not going to have these features with the portability and, you know, the larger wheels and things like that. So of course, option B is to make an adapter plate that will adapt this saw to this here stand. So just to show you what I mean with the saw removed from the stand, I could utilize these back holes. However, up here, if I were to drill a hole through that, I'd hit this plastic piece right there. So, you know, that's no good just in itself. You know, your miter saw is meant to fall right here, and you put a bolt up in there, and then everybody's happy, right? So of course, I have several methods I can use. One of them being like angle iron or channel. I can make my own adapters to fit the feet onto here. Even if I were to bolt, you know, utilize the back holes, and then put a double bolt in here and run a bar out to catch the front ones, I could do that way, you know, make it out of metal, of course. The second option here, of course, is that chunk of 14 gauge tin there. I can cut an X type of frame out of it and mount it on there, using, of course, you know, the holes from, well, the saw going into the metal, then of course the holes from the stand to mount the tin too. However, of course, like all of us, we have scrapies of wood laying around our workshop that really, chances are, aren't going to be used for much. So pretty much I decided to use this here. Now what I'm planning on doing is, of course, mounting the saw to this and then mounting this to the stand, you know, or vice versa, depends on how the holes line up. What I might end up having to do is center this over top of, well, the stand itself, and basically bolting the plywood to the stand using the factory 4 holes, like, you know, that one there, and then, you know, something like that one there and that one there. And then of course drilling and mounting the saw itself to the plywood. So essentially the saw would be centered, if you want to say, over top of the orange brackets, you know, rather than being back it'll be kind of semi-centered-ish, and then away we go. Now, of course, metal is my first choice because it's kind of what I know what to work with, kind of what I'm good at. You know, you fire up the old cutter, cut out your X-frame shape, you know, grind down the sharp edges, you know, give her a prime and a paint, and then away she goes. With the plywood, though, it's easier to work with. It's more pliable, if you want to say. You give her a gentle sanding, a bit of a painting, and it's good to go. However, the plywood does stand a risk of, well, breaking, right? Of course, the metal can bend anyways, and then you have to remake it. So, you know, both have their, well, downsides. So, of course, pretty much, guys, we're going to throw the saw onto the plywood, give ourselves a bit of a tracing with a pencil here, see what kind of footprint, if you want to say, we're going to be into here. Then we're going to see how much we can lighten this chunk of 3/4 plywood up, because of course, you know, it's a bit overkill. I could probably get away with 1/2 inch or 5/8, but hey, 3/4 is what we got, and that's what we're going to use. And then we'll see how we go from there, if you want to say. Okay, guys, so here we go. We got the saw all traced out. Pretty much as you've seen there, I come across there around the foot, pretty much back in around the side. And of course, you know, followed the same contour, if you want to say, of the saw all the way around. And of course, pretty much the same on this side, followed her all the way around. Didn't get really much into the detail at the back. I kind of squared it off a bit. And pretty much same, right? I'm not going to cut a jut out for the, well, wings here. Essentially, because they don't really need anything under them to hold them, because they're kind of self-supporting as it is. Then of course took my black marker there and well, dotted the inside there. That's where I know where to drill the holes. So pretty much, guys, gonna fire up the old probably jigsaw here and you know, start cutting the outline itself and kind of see how she goes. Okay, guys, so here we go. Got the basic well, trace pretty much done on the plywood here. Essentially, this is what you know, it's gonna be when it mounts on the stand. You know, you thin it out quite a bit, lose quite a bit of that plywood, which will lose the weight. So of course, my handy dandy Black & Decker jigsaw here, we'll take it and we will take it and give it a cutout. Okay, guys, so pretty much there we go. We got the well, pattern or footprint of course the saw and that all cut out. Pretty much good to go. I'm gonna run over with my, well, handy dandy sander here, give her a good old sanding just to smooth out any of the pointy, sharp, splintery type edges, because keep in mind, you know, this is a saw. You're going to be moving it a bit, and you're going to want to have, well, you know, a splinter free area, so if you happen to rub up against it, you're not going to get, well, splinters, right? So of course, going to run over it with the paper here just to, like I said, smooth out the edges, and then away we go. Okay, guys, so here we go. Pretty much ran me a sander over both sides of this here plate here. Of course, rounded out the edges pretty much as best as you can do with the orbital sander. If I really wanted to, I probably could have threw this in the router table, routered out the edges, done a little better job, if you want to say, of it. You know, of course, when you're not set up with a router table, or, you know, your router's not even set up yet, it's just easier to do it with the sander and basically color good. Of course, if this was a fancy, you know, hutch or moldings or trim moldings or whatever you're doing, some type of furniture, of course you would take that time. You know, this is just an adapter plate for the saw. It's really probably not going to be seen much, and really it's going to be covered most of the time, and away we go. So of course then I went and measured out the saw holes here, got them all drilled. And of course, curiosity got the better of me, so I started to mount it up, kind of a mock-up to the, well, you know, brackets to the saw and all that good stuff. And of course the front holes in the orange brackets are going to go through the wood into the front legs, pretty much right there of the saw. And of course the back holes there. These holes here are for the saw, and these holes here are for the orange bracket. So pretty much there's going to be a little bit of an overhang out the back, but it shouldn't make it that unstable. If it does, well then basically we'll have to go with another plan. We might end up having to move it ahead a little bit and kind of have it hanging out the front. But either way, there'll be an overhang no matter what direction we go. Of course, I got me a selection of bolts here. The shorter ones I'm going to use to well mount the plate to the orange brackets. And of course the longer ones will be used to mount, of course, the saw to the wooden adapter. So pretty much, guys, probably going to throw you on the old tripod, go into old fast forward mode, get this all mounted down, and then away we go. So pretty much, guys, we'll stick ourselves the carriage head bolt through here, and then we'll stick ourselves the 5/16 washer. So the bolt goes through the wood, through the metal bracket. Then the 5/16 washer will go between the nut and, of course, the metal bracket, just so the nut doesn't, well, pull through or anything like that. Pretty much like that. We'll tighten her on down. It'll pretty much suck flat. Being these legs are a stamped steel, there's a little indent here for this bolt to fall on into, so you know that works out too in our favor. Well, guys, here we are. Pretty much got her all bolted up, got her all good. I would like to show how I did it, but pretty much all I did there was use the front factory holes, if you want to say, in the orange brackets. Put the bolt up on through just like what you're supposed to do. And of course on the back, you know, we had to drill a hole here through the wood into the orange bracket to adapt it to there. Then pretty much there's a bolt here that bolts the saw to the wood itself. Now, of course, all the bolts have washers and lock washers on them, so they should not back themselves out. I probably could have used an acorn nut up front just to make it pretty. However, of course, these don't protrude through, so really there's no risk of cutting yourself. And of course, because these are so far down, they're not going to interfere with the operation of the saw anyways. So of course, guys, moment of truth, will she fit onto the stand? So of course, grabbing hold of your saw, keep in mind that it's a heavy one. You don't want to be dropping it, hurting yourself or whatever's. If this doesn't work out, it doesn't fit, make sure you got something close by you can turn back around and set it on, versus, you know, dropping your saw. So, of course, here we go. So, of course, just like what's recommended, dropping the back brackets in first. The weight of the saw pushes the front ones down, ends here. So pretty much we'll lock down the front, like that. And basically, away she goes. It really doesn't make it tippy, having it overhang the back at all. You know, I'm rocking that pretty good, more than what you'd ever would, even when you're cutting wood or anything like that. So basically, guys, there we go. We got the saw all mounted on up to the stand here. Of course, this method here may not work for your saw. Your saw might fit the way it's supposed to, or this method may not work at all for your saw. But this gives you just a basic idea of what I did to make my saw fit on here. Of course, my Canadian Tire Maximum saw might be different from your saw. This one might have been an off-brand, offshoot, kind of a one-time type of deal, or maybe this is their brand new saw they have out. And of course, this stand is older technology, so it does not fit. Of course, guys, in time, you know, they might retrofit the stands or might give you a kit to make a saw like this fit. But for right now, this is how I did it, and it's going to work for me. Of course, guys, as always, thanks for watching Maxwell's World. Comment, subscribe, and enjoy.